Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Brightspace Essentials Mastering Your Online Learning Platform webinar. I am Angela Francis. I am your facilitator as well as the Assistant Dean of General Education and First Year Experience. I am so happy to be here with you all and so grateful to you all for joining us. I am also grateful to the members of the events team who are once again with us, Heather and Molly, as well as the wonderful Emily Jennings, who you may have already seen in our orientation site. And lastly, very grateful to our captioner, Samantha. So thank you all for being here. And I am very much looking forward to covering some of these materials with you. So let's get started. Just a bit of highlights. If you are enjoying these webinars so far, I really want to make sure you are aware of one that's happening tomorrow about credit for prior learning. So if you have learning from outside of the classroom that you think might be college level, this is a great opportunity to learn more about the different ways you could potentially earn college credit for that learning. We also have Write Like a Pro, which will cover essays, academic integrity, and AI. And Emily will be the lead facilitator and speaker for that webinar. So I know it will be fantastic. And then we'll be back here next Tuesday on the 21st to cover resources that can really help you thrive during your time here. That includes different offices and what they might have to offer, but also genuinely free resources that might be helpful to you. For example, a favorite of mine is Zotero, which can help you organize your resources and cite things properly. So if any of those sound interesting to you, I hope you will do your best, if possible, to join us for those live webinars. But speaking about webinars, just as a reminder or something new, if this is your first time in a webinar with us, if you have a question about what we're covering in terms of navigating Brightspace, please do use the QA. And while we will have a dedicated QA session at the end of this webinar, please do feel encouraged to ask questions as we move forward, because most of this webinar will actually be a live demo. So I will be checking periodically to see the questions that are posted in the QA in an attempt to make sure I answer them promptly if possible. That said, if suddenly you can't hear me, you can't see my screen, something has gone awry technically, please do post those in the chat. The chat tends to be too busy for me to find questions, so those are really not the place to put the questions about how to use Brightspace. But just if you're having an issue or if you want to chat amongst yourselves as you're looking at all of this, that is a good space for it. And members of the events team will also be periodically posting information there too. So what will we cover? There's a lot, but you'll find that we'll be able to move through it fairly smoothly. So first, there's just logging in, exploring your courses. We'll also discuss exploring your course sites, looking at announcements and instructor information, content topics and navigating the discussion board, submitting assignments, taking tests and quizzes. I will talk to you about checking your grades, but because I'm not a true student, it's not going to look exactly like what you will see, but I'll be able to give you some points and some tips about that, as well as some tips for the semester. If we end up with time after all of that, I will log into an actual course. However, if we don't have time in this moment, I'll make sure that you all have the opportunity to at least see a course tour of a real live course that you might see during the semester. So with all of that, let's get started with our demo. Those of you who were with us during the opening webinar already know this, but I do indeed have a favorite way to log in to Brightspace, and it is to come to the cuny.edu homepage and hover over Login and choose Brightspace/Blackboard. This landing page is here because while some of our courses, or some of our campuses rather, are already in Brightspace, we do have some that are still in Blackboard for one semester. So for now, you'll have to choose Login to Brightspace rather than Login to Blackboard. When you click that, it will take you to that single sign-on page where you'll use your @login.cuny.edu login. I'm already logged in, so if I had pressed that button, it would just take me right here anyway. But I did want to show you this page. So there's a lot here, and there's especially a lot here because as an administrator, I am in a lot of courses. However, for you, when you log in, there's a couple of things that you might find you see. One is that your previous CUNY campus, if you have one, may still be the one that you see up here if it was in Brightspace. That is okay. During the time before the semester starts, the university is still working on making sure it updates which campus you are now a student in. So you should ultimately see it transfer on over to CUNY SPS. But if you were, say, at Queens College and they're in Brightspace, don't be alarmed if you still see things from Queens College right now. The second thing is that you should not expect to see access to your courses for the spring term yet. It's possible you won't see them all. It's also possible that you might see them listed as inactive. So the same way that I see closed here for a previous semester's site, sometimes they just say inactive. Either one of those is fine. You will be able to see your spring semester courses on the first day of the spring term, which just so happens to be on a Saturday this term, on the 25th. So if you don't see anything before then, please don't worry about it. I am noticing that there is a raised hand, and I unfortunately cannot allow you to speak. I can't give you speaking permissions here. So if you have a question, please do go ahead and pop it in the QA because I'll be able to address it there. So once you're here, just want to point out logging into your course is actually nice and easy. You just need to click the name of the course, and that will bring you to the course homepage. Now, I am navigating this page in a way to help me sort of mimic a learner, but you will probably see some differences. I will try to point them out when I run into them, but I just want to make sure you are aware. And please do feel free if you are in this course site, if you are already in orientation, to follow along if you'd like. But we will also be providing this as a recording in case you would like to follow along later. So a couple of things about the course homepage. First off, you can see your announcements posted on the left. And this is definitely a space to look every time you log in. While many faculty will provide you with this information in email, it's just always good to make sure you haven't lost track of anything. So please do look here. Likewise, if there are more announcements than you can see just here, you'll just go to the bottom and say show all announcements. It will show you all of the announcements that have been posted thus far. You can also view just a little bit about your professor at the bottom. And there are events, both in terms of the work to do, which you can see here, and in terms of the course calendar. So you can see upcoming events listed here. In orientation, it's all going to have the same due date, but they will have different due dates when you are in your courses. And remember, once again, you can always click Show More. At the bottom of every course, you can also see program contents. And clicking this will take you to a place where you can find the information for all academic directors and myself, if it is a gen ed course. So if you find yourself with questions about your academic program and you're not sure where to go during the semester, this link will take you there. Scrolling up, I also want to point out that you should not expect what you see when you log in here to necessarily be everything that's available. And I will show you proof of that by briefly stopping being a learner. So now I can see the faculty view, and you can see that there's a module number 3 that has not been released to you all yet. So as a student, you can see materials as they're released that generally in a 15-week course will be either 1 or 2 modules at a time, maybe more. But I just want to highlight the fact that just because when you log in, you're just seeing a certain amount, be aware that more are likely to appear as the semester continues. And so that can be seen in the visual table of contents widget, which is located on the right of the screen. So how do you navigate all of this material? Well, I have my preferred way. I'm going to show you a couple, however. I actually prefer to go straight to the module I'm interested in engaging in. So in this case, that's going to be module 0. The reason for that is if I click module 0 to enter into it, I see the whole thing. So here's everything that is available in module 0. I can also see on the left rather, a table of contents. So if I realize, oh, actually this isn't the module I needed, I can always just click into another module just by clicking the name of the module. I can do that for module 0 as well. But when you're in a different module, what it will do is it will show you any subfolders. So for example, module 1 has a couple of subfolders, navigating Brightspace and communicating effectively. Likewise, module 2, I can do the same and see the different areas. What I like about using this method is that I can choose now which one of these I want to go into, which aspect. So for example, module 0 has the syllabus, a course tour, and multiple other types of information or activities. If I were to use any other method, for example, going back to the course home, using the top navigation bar, I can click content. And what it will do is it will bring me to the last place I was. And sometimes that is the last thing I completed. So in this case, it brought me to module 0. But let's say that last time I was in orientation, I had gone into module 1 to complete an activity, and I forgot that's where I last was. Clicking on content up here could bring me right back there. So I don't necessarily know how to predict where I will end up when I click content. So that's why I prefer using the visual table of contents. You can also, if you are thinking, what was it that I had to do? I already read all of the material. If you are on the course homepage, you can also access work to do by the work to do widget. So that's located on the right of course home, right underneath the visual table of contents widget. And so for example, I can click introductions, and that takes me to the introductions forum. So that is another way to navigate the course. If I were to give you a suggestion about how to do this, I would say to start the week, to make sure you don't miss anything, use the visual table of contents widget to go into the module that interests you. Once you've reviewed all of the information and you just need to go and submit things or return to things, that's when I would say look at this work to do area. Let me pause here just to see. I don't think I see anything in the QA that hasn't been answered yet. So I'm going to keep going. I have now returned to module 0, because I'm going to use this to start just to show you the layout of these pages. If a module has just general introductions or information, that's going to be at the top of the screen. And you can see here a bar that lets you know how much of the module you've completed. So this is including both information about readings and videos. Also, though, it includes activities. So there are 6 items here. 5 of them are things to review, and 1 is a quiz. And you can also see on the right of the screen, everything I've already done has a check mark. And if I haven't, it's got a little circle. So that's just what this is pulling from. And with material to review, all it's saying is that you've moved through it and gone to the next one. Just click the title of whatever you're interested in reviewing, and you can see this screen is showing you a file. So in this case is a PDF. You can view the PDF within the browser, but if for whatever reason you would prefer to download or print it, those are available at the bottom. And you can see here, it shows me I viewed this topic. If at any point I am here inside of an item, I have options about how to navigate. So if I just want to move from one to the next in order, all I have to do is look on the right side of the screen for the 2 arrows and just click the arrow pointing to the right. And that brings me to the next window, in this case, a tour or a video. I can click that again. I've got another video. This tastes a welcome. And here is more in-depth information about your facilitator, in this case, me. You will see something similar about your professors. So this information here, often in a start here or a course information area, will be where you are able to see information about how to contact your professors, about the timing of their office hours, and any other information about them that might be useful. While I can continue clicking these arrows at the top of the screen, let's say I don't want to go into it in order anymore. Well, on the left of the screen, there is that little arrow. I'll just show it to you again. It looks just like a little tab. If you hover over it, it'll say expand side panel. And this gives you that same table of contents where you can see those check marks for what you did, the type of resource each thing is, and navigate in whatever order you'd like. So I'm going to go, for example, to the quiz questionnaire. Now, in this case, I am going to switch to another tab. I am now viewing this as a instructor. When you enter a quiz, you will be able to see the description of the quiz, any details. So for example, what's the time limit? How long do you have to take it? How long is it available to you? When is it due? And there's a difference there because it can be available to you beyond the due date if your professor is going to allow you to submit work late, potentially with a lateness penalty. So make sure that you pay attention to that due date more than the availability date. This will also tell you information about how many attempts you have. So this could say something like unlimited, just like time limit did up here. It might say 1, or in this case, you got 2, and it'll give you further instructions. When you click Start Quiz, you will see your quiz questions listed here. Now, orientation predominantly uses multiple choice or multiple answer questions. And those are exactly what you would expect. But you will sometimes see text entry questions like this one. What's important about that is that we can set up multiple choice, multiple answer, true or false, those types of questions so that you can get instant feedback. Now, not all quizzes will give those to you, but when we've enabled it, you can take a quiz, and if there's nothing but multiple choice, get the score potentially right away. If you are taking a quiz or exam that has a text entry question, that has to be reviewed manually by your professor. So just be aware that that's when there will be a delay. I am not actually going to submit this quiz simply because I can't view it as a student, but I will make sure that you all can see images of what my grades looks like. And speaking of my grades, or in this case, grades, I want to make sure that I clear up something that would cause me a lot of anxiety. This should not be the case in most of your courses, but you will see this occasionally. If you look here, there are a lot of things I have not submitted yet, and I see 0 points, and I see a bunch of Fs. And I would have a lot of agita if I saw this. If you are in a course where you log in on the first day of the term and you see this, do not panic. All this means is that the course is set up so that the total points is meant to show you what you have out of the amount you could possibly have at the end of the term. So for example, if this was a course out of 1,000 points and there was a total column or a total row, it would be providing you with that information saying, okay, well, it's week 2 of the term and you've earned 200 out of 1,000 points. Unfortunately, when it says 0 out of 100, sometimes it treats that like a real grade, and therefore it's showing you these Fs. This means nothing in a course that is set up this way. So on day 1 of the course or of the semester, log into your courses, go into grades, look to see if you see this. If you do, know that you can disregard all of this, because this is really just because Brightspace is showing you a grade associated with the fact that you haven't earned any points yet. So you'll see that in orientation. You hopefully will not see that often outside of orientation, but we wanted to show it to you here so that if you saw it later, it wouldn't be the first time. Let me pause again. I don't think I see any more questions, so I will keep on going. All right, so at this point, we have already actually gone over navigating much of your course site, because even if I go into module 2, just to show you, you'll see that this is a more complicated module because it has those sub areas, right? These are subfolders. You can minimize them by clicking the downward arrow to the right of the title, just in case it's easier for you to navigate this way. But the way you'll move through the space is exactly the same. So you can see here, I've got my areas with my check marks in the table of contents to the left. I can click on one here just to go straight into it. But if I wanted to, I could do the exact same by going to the larger module and clicking on the first item. And so you can see once again, I can navigate using the table of contents on the left. I can navigate using the arrows on the right. That is how everything will be set up. I want to move on to talking about discussion boards, because a lot of what you will do on a weekly basis in many of your courses will live here. So first, some of the language in Brightspace is a bit different than it was in Blackboard. In Blackboard, we called this page where you could see all of the different weekly areas, weekly prompts. just the discussion board, and then each one, let's say the QA forum or Ask a Help Desk, Blackboard called those forums. In Brightspace, this Ask for Help, which contains the QA, the help desk, and the Ask an SPS student or graduate, Ask for Help is the forum. If I minimize this, so you can see another one, here, introductions, planning your time, those are the forums. And what we used to call forums are now called topics. So introductions is now considered to be a topic. I mentioned that to you just in case the verbiage gets a little bit confusing. You can see if I scroll here to planning your time, that if a end date has been set for everything in the forum, you may see it here. If the different topics have different end dates, you'll see that here. This is about the availability date. So just be aware that this is about availability, not necessarily about due dates. You can also see that it will tell you things like if you have to post first to a topic. So if I am here as a learner, and we'll see if it will let me view it the way you would. Right, in this case, I'm seeing it a little bit differently, unfortunately. So for you, you will have to start a new thread, and that is what will enable you to see what other people have posted. For me, because I'm not truly a student, I can still see everything. I also want to highlight if there's a rubric that you can see that's attached to it, it will be listed here. So we've temporarily added one just so you can see it. If you ever see rubric listed, I highly suggest looking at it in advance, because this is the same rubric that your professor will be using to evaluate your work. And that means you can see if you wanted to get that exemplary grade, or in this case, an A, here's what you need to do. Likewise, you want to avoid a do not complete. This is what you want to make sure you do more than. So always make sure, if possible, to review this information before you submit your work. And just a thumbs up just to make sure, so sometimes it goes up. If you just saw the rubric, can you please just give me a thumbs up? Want to make sure it was visible to you all. Beautiful, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so in this case, you will be able to see any information about what to do here at the top. And you can go here to start a new thread. One wonderful change from Blackboard is that in Blackboard, you could only subscribe to either an entire forum, now called a topic, or to your individual thread. So for example, if you were going to the QA, which I'll head back to now, by expanding that forum, and I'm actually going to go to the Ask the Help Desk forum because it's empty. If I make a thread, which I'll do first, if I could only either subscribe to the whole forum or to my individual thread, you now have a choice about which you would like to do in each case. So in every case, you'll want to start a new thread, which will open up this dialog box. You'll always need to insert a subject. And if you are used to Blackboard, a lot of this will feel familiar. This is also what's called a WYSIWYG. That's how you say whiz or spell WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG editor. What that stands for is what you see is what you get. It means that you can use the way that your post looks as you craft it as a sign of what it will look like in the future when you post it. You can also, on the lower right of the text entry box, make it larger or smaller just by clicking on the arrow in that corner, just in case you need more words. And if there was a word requirement, a word count requirement, you can see it will actually keep track of that for you in the lower left of the text box. The example of a WYSIWYG editor, I'm just going to write test a couple of times here, is that you can do everything you would generally want to do in Word. So I'm on a PC, I can press Control B and bold things. If I wanted this to be a list, for example, I can highlight it. And if you look at these tools on the bar on the top, choose list. If you're using something, if you're visually impaired and you're using a screen reader, it is the one called list. And you'd have options for bulleted list, numbered list, or just increasing or decreasing the indents. But you can see that as I choose that, it goes ahead and it does it for me. I can also do things like highlighting something and, highlighting something and having a smaller group of options pop up here. The one you are likely to use the most is the third one, add and edit link. So this is where you can create a link to an outside website. What I want to make sure you remember is to always keep this HTTPS there in the beginning, because that is how you make sure that this will actually take you where you want to go. So I'm just going to make this, I'll make this CUNY. Why not? And you could also change this. So because I highlighted the word test, it started with test in the text box. I always suggest that you choose open in new window rather than current window, because this makes it easier for people to navigate back and forth. And so this is now a link. You can see, I now can see at that bottom that I have 2 words in my selection, and you can see it's a link. Not only can I look at it, I can click on it and I can go there just by clicking go to link. So if you are in a situation where you are really not sure that everything is working well, remember that you can test it all before you post it. You can also insert, says stuff, but there's lots of options here. So if, for example, you wanted another way to insert a link, you could do so here. You can also insert videos, and you can insert things that have embed codes. That's going to be less likely to happen. Lastly, I just want to point out that you can attach things. And if you are in a course that is asking you to make a recording, that option is down here, where you can either record video or audio. So that may also be something you are tasked with doing on the discussion board. If that happens, here's where. When you're all done, you would say post. I have now created my thread. I am subscribed to it, but if I don't want to be anymore, I can click it and say unsubscribe me. Likewise, if I want to subscribe to the forum, I just click it and I can choose which type of subscription I want and just say subscribe. Pausing here before I move on from the discussion board, just to see the questions. All right now they're not about this. I'm gonna hold off on answering these for now, and do my best to get answers to all of them to you before the end of this session. The last thing I want to show you here is that there is a search bar up here in the upper right. And it is saying we can search whatever part of the forum you are on. So right now I'm in Ask the Help Desk. I can search Ask the Help Desk there. If I go to the main discussions list, There is the option to go into, let's say, I'll head into a different forum, time management, and I can search here for all sorts of things. So you can find things, I searched for my name, and you can see where I made a comment. You can also search for words. Oops, times is not the right word to search here, but time might be. And you can see anything where someone said the word time will now pop up. This is a good trick to use if you want to see everywhere your professor commented during the week, because if your professor is commenting on the discussion board, they are providing feedback or asking questions that might help you while you're thinking about your own posts as well. So just think about, you can also search for your own name if you'd like, but remember you can search for key terms or just for the name of someone you want to find what they said up here. One reason why I spent some time on that editor is because you can find that in other areas of the course as well. So I want to go to activities next because I want to show you assignments. This is an assignment page. In your course, you would see more than one. And this is an assignment where I actually submitted something once before. So you can see it's one submission, one file, hasn't been scored yet, hasn't been evaluated. But I'm going to go here again just to show you what this looks like. So you can see all of the instructions for the assignment. If you scroll down, you can see the due date. You can also see the availability date and why it matters. So in this case, the availability date matters because after availability is over, you can't submit anymore. I always suggest that for anything you want to upload, any essays, any assignments, when you see this type of page, that you submit it as a file. And in particular, you're going to want to submit it as a Microsoft, for example, Word, Excel, etc. file. If you're using an Apple computer and you have Pages, you're going to want to use Save As and save it as a Word file or a PDF because those can be seen within the website rather than relying on your professor to have access to that program. I clicked Add a File, and I'm going to add something from my computer. And so I can now see tester for demo is the file name, the file size. I want to add it. And then I can add any comments. Comments are best used for things you want to tell your professor, questions you have, things of that nature. This is not the place to put in the full text of an essay. You really want to upload instead. And once you are satisfied, go ahead and click submit. I do suggest clicking the file to open it. And I am actually going to right click to open it in a new tab because all it will do is download it. So it's not going to show it to you in this window. But when you click submit, here's what you'll see. You've got your file submission, and what you will ultimately get, I'm going to show you a screenshot of it, is an email. So this is the email I received letting me know that I had submitted this file. Consider it your receipt. So make sure that you have that, and that will allow you to just have a sense of security if you see either this page or that email that your submission was indeed successfully submitted. That's important because if you haven't finished submitting the work, your professor can't see it. You can view your history. So I've submitted 2 times to this page. And it will allow me to see information about, once again, the file. But as you can see, it is just downloading it for me, and the date. If there were other assignments, I would be able to click up here where it says assignment and go to the other assignments to view information about that. So this is a great page to go to if you just aren't sure if you've actually submitted the work. It's a good way to check. There is a similar option for quizzes. So you can see here, it will tell you the number of attempts you have. So academic integrity, you've got unlimited. Orientation start questionnaire, you've got 2. It will tell you how many times you've submitted it, and it will give you your evaluation status. So those are the places that you may want to go to just to find out more information about those things. Let me pause to look at the questions. So the sexual harassment quiz, I believe you are talking about Spark, and that is external. So if you have a question about that, we're going to be posting an announcement shortly. But there is an email address, Spark spelled with a C, SP like Peter, ARC like Charlie at sps.cuny.edu. And they will be able to verify for you where you are, if you have credit, if you need to do something more. And emailing them will give you an autoresponder that will just give you general information. Other questions? So there's a question of if you can save a PDF using Google Docs instead of Word. The answer is yes. But I do want to point out that you will have free access to Word and the rest of the Microsoft suite just for being a student here. So you will have access to all of those. But as long as you upload a PDF or a Word document, you are fine. There was a question here about submitting any file. Are you able to review it? So if you remember when I was clicking on it and it was downloading a file for me, I'll just open it, tester for demo. You can see what I was uploading. Here's what I was uploading each time. And that's how you can see it. So this is showing me, this is the file that I uploaded because I love cats and I'm also looking forward to you all graduating. And so that's how you would be able to review the file that you have posted, and you can access that either before or after you actually submit this to your professor. Next, there is a question about, I completed the orientation. Remember, however, there is one more module that you can't see yet. It opens on the 16th. So you're not yet done with orientation, but we will be working on grading these as quickly as possible after the end of orientation on the discussion board, and more promptly, if possible, on your Mindset GPS assignment. So we will be working on that as quickly as we can, but there are already about 500 of you in the orientation site and growing, and there's just 2 of Emily and me. So please be patient with us. We'll appreciate it. There is a question about, let me close the graduation cat for the moment. A question about in the work to do, is there a way to see what was already done? I would honestly go to activities for this or grades, but activities and quizzes will be able to show you here whether or not it has been completed. So you see at this point, I can see that I submitted 2 things and there were a total of 2 files, but it hasn't been graded yet. It hasn't been evaluated yet. That would be my favorite place to go for this. And So that would be what I would suggest there instead. Someone is asking, does every class have this setup, i.e. time management and a rubric? So if what you mean by that is, does every class have a rubric attached to a discussion board? Most of your courses will indeed have that. If there is a discussion or rubric attached to an assignment that it's set for you to be able to see it in advance of your submission, it will look just like that. But what I want you to see is I'm going to go into another discussion board. Now this one is not graded, but you'll see there's no rubric listed up here. So that is also a possibility. And those rubrics will appear in multiple places when they are visible to you. All right. For the person asking, is there a quiz that you have to take for this orientation and where do you take it? You were on the first one and did not take one. So there are two quizzes. One is a real quiz. One is essentially a survey that we've launched or deployed as a quiz so that we know who it is who completed it. And there's also a survey. So there are, for the quizzes, two ways to access quizzes. First way, go to activities and click quizzes. And you can see the quizzes that you currently have access to in the course. The other way that you can do this, and the way that I suggest you move through the course the first time, is to resist the urge to just go to activities and go to the things that you have to submit. Because the context teaching you the materials in these spaces, for example, the academic integrity quiz, you will not see that if you go straight into the quiz. Instead, what I would suggest doing is going to course home and going into the module. So in this case, module 2, and I'm going to close this QA tab for the moment, because you can see as I navigate through this space, I can see all of the different things within this area. Actually, it might be in module 1, my apologies. Scrolling down, taking quizzes and exams. In module 1, you can see list key task, academic integrity quiz. So at minimum, I would suggest going into module 1, either from the course home or the table of contents on the side of the left, and then going to taking quizzes and exams, which will first show you about taking quizzes, and then we'll prepare you for the quiz in terms of academic honesty and academic integrity. And remember, as you move through the module, you can click the arrows on the upper right to move from one to the next. So giving you information about those tools. Those same arrows are on the bottom right. This then helps you prepare for the quiz. And once you've done that, when you hit the quiz, it will launch you right to that same page you would have accessed by going to activities, quizzes, and clicking academic integrity quiz there. So I really suggest using this when you've already reviewed all of the materials for the week and you just need to quickly get to the assignment. I'm going to return to the PowerPoint just to give you some tips for the semester and give you guys some time to ask any more questions before I do that end of webinar breeze through of any remaining and try to get to as many as possible. So remember, you can get Brightspace notifications via email or the Pulse app. If you are attempting to download the Pulse app and you need to find the school, you will actually be looking for the university. So if you search for CUNY, C-U-N like Nancy Y, or just type out City University of New York, that's what Pulse is looking for. It is not looking for School of Professional Studies. Make sure that you note each class's weekly due dates. So sometimes a course will be run Mondays when the course is open or the course week's open and they close with everything due on Sunday. Sometimes due to the way that a semester is organized, it may start and close on a different day. Like for the fall, many gen ed courses started, I believe, on a Wednesday. So it's just really important to make sure you note the weekly due dates. You don't want to assume there. I assume, or I advise rather, that in a 15-week course during the fall and spring, that you make time to log in at least 2 to 3 times a week. Ideally on the first day or two that the week is open so that you can start reviewing the assignments and the materials midweek so that you can complete anything with a midweek deadline, which is often making your initial post on a discussion board. And then at the end of the week or toward the end of the week, to see any comments made to you on the discussion board, because that may include comments made to you by your professors. In the summer, or if you are taking a 7-week course during the term, I highly suggest logging in daily because those courses move twice as fast as the 15-week courses. If you are using Pulse, the mobile app, make sure at least once to compare what you can see in the desktop versus the mobile. Remember also to check your announcements and your email frequently. I would actually suggest daily because you'll be receiving emails from all of your courses, but also from offices. And so it's really key that you check that email frequently because you may be missing information otherwise. Also, remember in that early week check-in, because I said try to log in 2 to 3 times a week for a 15-week course, ask your questions then if you can, because you should plan to wait around 24 hours for a response during the semester. And if you wait until the day before something is due, you may not get an answer in time to receive the feedback and incorporate it. Do your best to give all needed information. If you're talking to a staff office, that includes your EMPL ID. And remember to take advantage of resources like tutoring. If you are having questions about Brightspace, and it's particularly after orientation is over, there is a CUNY dedicated Brightspace line with Brightspace. With the number on the screen, it's 877-325-7778. But you can also email the help desk for assistance. Let's hit some more QAs for the rest of our time together. So someone was saying they were confused by Module 2 and the discussion board. And so I just need to know more about what was confusing there so that I can provide assistance. But if you'd like, you can also email us at orientation@sps.cuny.edu. Likewise, you need to be registered for courses before you can access orientation. So if you have not yet been able to meet with your advisor or their earliest their earliest availability is, let's say, after tomorrow, send us an email because we may be able to make it so that you can just register if you don't have specific questions to ask your advisor. Someone says they're not sure why they're not enrolled in Spring 25 yet. It's not clear to me if you mean your courses or your orientation. If you're not enrolled in the Spring 25 orientation yet and you have registered for your courses and it has been more than 2 business days, please reach out to us. We will look into it because the answer to that varies based on your particular situation. Someone said they're confused about how to respond on the discussion board. That gets a demo. All right, so I'm going back to the discussion board. And I'm going to go to my own post on the help desk. So here I am. While I can click the More button and see more of the post, in order to respond to the discussion board, you need to click the name of the post, in this case, test. This gives you the option to view all replies. It also gives you the option to reply to the thread. And you can see here, you've got the exact same WYSIWYG editor as before. You have the same ability to upload or record and to post. So here, I'm just going to say test response. And I'm going to post this. And here you can see the original post. And down here, the reply and the ability to reply to a reply. Now, obviously, you would want to do a much better job than this, but you can see now that a reply to a reply is indeed indented further. You can see the number. And if I head back to the topic, here you can see now I've read everything. There's one view, it just happens to be me, and 2 replies. And over here, you can see the last post that was made. So hopefully that helps with the discussion board. But if not, now that you hopefully know how to make a thread and a comment, you can actually post that question, any further questions about that to the QA, because I noticed that we are running out of time. So very quickly, when will you be able to access course material? On the 25th, the first day of the semester, usually by 9 a.m., but often earlier, you will be able to go to the Brightspace homepage, which you can access by clicking the little house in the upper left corner. That brings you right back here. And that is when you should see your courses. So that's when you'll see it. Access to the career narrative. If you are already in your group, when you are in the site, you will go to the discussions. Now I'm going to see a whole bunch. You would just see one. Career narrative is located here, and it is right here listed. If you do not see anything here, it means you're not yet in your group. You can email us. We are manually adding people to groups as soon as we can. The other option for you, very quickly, because I know I am over time, is to go to Tools. You will not see all of these options, but you should see Groups. And then you will be able to click Discussions. And it will show you the discussion topics here as well. And let me see one more. Okay, I'm going to answer one about submitting a assignment on the discussion board. Because if you have a question about if you have to do orientation in particular, we need to check if you've done it before, and that's why I cannot answer that question here. It varies based on multiple factors, so please just email us about that question. So if you are submitting something to the discussion board and it does not tell you that you need to submit it as an attachment, you can indeed submit it just in the text of the discussion board. If it needs to be an attachment, the assignment will tell you so. So my suggestion is, at minimum, if you are writing a lot on the discussion board, that you at least copy it all before you press submit, just in case your internet goes down, because it is extremely frustrating when that happens. But do not feel like you need to use a assignment upload in terms of a file on the discussion board. And I personally, as a professor, tend to prefer that students not do so because it makes it harder for me to grade it. I tend to prefer, this is just, again, me speaking, that students actually type in the discussion board. I know that there are a few other questions, but I am already out of time. And so I just want to thank you all for joining us during this webinar. I know that Brightspace, when it's new for you, can be a lot to navigate. And I hope that this helped make you feel a little bit more comfortable. Again, remember that orientation is here for you to practice and make mistakes. So even if you take both attempts with that quiz, if you've made a mistake with both, just email us. We'll open up another attempt for you. This is a low stakes space for you to make mistakes. That is why we are here. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We are always glad to help. And I hope that you found this webinar useful. And I look forward to seeing you in the site. Please take care and have a wonderful evening.